General Hospital spoilers reveal that no one in Port Charles would have ever guessed that the person who slipped Tracy the key to Drew's home, the very key that allowed her to invade his privacy, search through his belongings, and ignite a storm that would shake the Quartermain legacy, was Michael. Calm, soft-spoken Michael, the man who always insisted he only wanted peace, stability, and fairness for his family. But the truth was far darker. Michael had reached a breaking point, and the fracture inside him had created space for ambition, fear, and control to take root. And once he gave Tracy that key, he crossed a moral boundary he could never step back from. Michael had been watching the chaos unfold around Drew for months. He saw Willow spiraling into a state he no longer understood, saw Jason hovering close with suspicion in his eyes, saw Alexis raising her voice against decisions she couldn't tolerate. Most of all, he saw the Quartermain power structure trembling, shifting beneath the weight of secrets, lies, and hidden agendas. And something inside him snapped. This time, unlike every conflict before, Michael refused to be passive. He refused to allow another disaster to blindside the Quartermain family. He refused to lose everything they had built because of other people's recklessness. So he made a choice. A cold, strategic, carefully executed choice that changed everything. He approached Tracy privately, fully aware of her unquenchable hunger for leverage, legacy, and control. He understood that if anyone could turn a simple key into a weapon, it was Tracy, and he gave her the perfect tool to do it. The key to Drew's house, the key to Drew's secrets, the key to the next war. When Tracy slipped inside Drew's home under the veneer of concern and entitlement, she believed she was operating alone. She believed she was the force behind the scheme, that her instincts had led her to uncover corruption, weakness, or something she could use to reshape the Quartermain hierarchy. But the truth was chilling. Michael had orchestrated everything. The break-in was not Tracy's victory. It was Michael's experiment, a test to see how far he could push the situation without being detected. He needed to know what Willow was hiding. He needed to know how compromised Drew truly was. He needed to know whether Jason, Alexis, or Sonny posed a threat to the family's future. And if Tracy uncovered something devastating, even better. Michael understood that sometimes the Quartermains needed a villain to maintain their power, and he was perfectly willing to provide one. But what Michael didn't anticipate was how much he would enjoy the control. For the first time in his life, Michael felt the rush his father had lived on for decades, the intoxicating thrill of moving people. Like pieces on a board, anticipating reactions, predicting outcomes. He felt himself slipping into a mindset he had always feared. A mindset he once promised he would never inherit. But the taste of power came quickly, sweetly, and with a clarity he had never known. He wasn't acting impulsively, he was strategizing. He was building. He was protecting the Quartermain empire with a precision no one expected from him. And yet, the consequences of his actions began unfolding faster than he anticipated. Tracy found things in Drew's house that fed her suspicions more than they offered clarity. Cryptic medical notes, inconsistencies in Willow's statements, signs of isolation and manipulation. What she didn't find unsettled her even more. Her questions multiplied, her accusations sharpened, and Michael watched, silent and calculating, as she demanded answers from the rest of the family. Everything was working according to his plan until the ripples of chaos he created expanded outward, in ways he never intended. Jason began connecting dots, not about Willow, but about Michael. Alexis grew suspicious of how Tracy gained access to private spaces. Ned sensed a power shift happening beneath the family's feet. And Danny, hearing fragments of adult conversations, started asking questions no one wanted to answer. Michael tried to maintain his calm exterior, gentle voice, steady hands, measured tone, but something in his eyes betrayed the truth. He knew the situation was spiraling faster than he could contain. But instead of stepping back, instead of admitting the mistake, Michael doubled down. He justified everything in the name of family, in the name of legacy, in the name of protecting what was theirs. But the real reason was more complicated. Michael was tired of being the peacekeeper, tired of being underestimated, tired of watching everyone else make decisions that shaped his world, while he stayed quiet in the background. This time, he wanted control. And the moment Tracy stormed through the Quartermain mansion, demanding answers, Michael realized he had become exactly what he once feared, a man capable of orchestrating chaos for the sake of power, no matter who suffered in the process. The break-in was only the first step. Michael knew Willow was spiraling, and he feared her downfall would shatter not just Drew but the Quartermain name. So he positioned himself carefully, preparing for the moment when he would have to make a ruthless choice: expose Willow or protect her. And if protecting her meant sacrificing Drew, Jason, or Alexis, Michael convinced himself he could live with it. But the greatest twist, the darkest truth, was something he could not yet face. By giving Tracy that key, Michael hadn't just betrayed Drew. He had betrayed everything the Quartermains once believed themselves to be. And in the process, he had awakened a version of himself the entire town should fear. Because Port Charles knew how to handle villains, enemies, and criminals. But it had no idea how to handle Michael when he finally decided to stop being the victim and start becoming the architect. Michael never imagined the day would come when he would look at Willow and see not the woman he once loved, not the mother of his children, but a threat quiet, calculated, and far more dangerous than anyone in Port Charles yet understood. Everything began unraveling the moment he pieced together the truth behind Drew's collapse, every detail fitting into place with a precision that left him cold. The missing medication vial, the altered chart, the strange hesitation in Willow's voice whenever anyone asked about Drew's symptoms, the way her eyes flickered with panic whenever Jason came too close to the truth. Michael didn't want to believe it, but denial evaporated the second he realized the timeline only made sense. If Willow had been the one to poison Drew, once that realization settled into his chest like ice, something inside him shifted permanently. He felt betrayal, yes, but more than that. He felt clarity, and unforgiving clarity that allowed him to see Willow not as the victim she pretended to be, but as the architect of a quiet horror unfolding within their family. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't grieving. She wasn't confused. She was in control. And Michael knew that someone who had tasted power through manipulation would not stop unless she was forced to. Michael began studying her like an adversary, each movement, each breath, each faltering answer becoming evidence in his unfolding strategy. Willow, unaware that he had caught on, continued spinning lies in soft tones, performing innocence with trembling hands and gentle smiles. But Michael saw the truth hidden behind her eyes, the tension, the fear, the calculation. She was planning her next move, and he needed to plan his faster. He recognized the darkness she carried because he had lived through it before. He had seen it in Sunny. He had glimpsed it in Nina. He had felt it in himself when pushed to the edge. But Willow's darkness was different, colder, quieter. She coated her cruelty with tenderness, making her almost impossible to expose without proof. That was why Michael didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he created a pressure system around her, tightening slowly so she wouldn't realize she was being cornered until it was far too late. He began by subtly inserting himself into every decision surrounding Drew's care-changing schedules, rearranging medical consultations, insisting on having the final say. Willow tried to challenge him at first, but when she saw the uncharacteristic sharpness in his tone, she faltered. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He didn't reveal the truth. He simply took control with a calm authority she had no experience countering. Her unease grew, and Michael watched it grow like a blade sharpening under heat. Then he turned to Alexis. Without revealing everything, he quietly supported Alexis's involvement in Danny and Scout's lives, reinforcing a legal structure that would tighten around Willow like invisible chains. Willow sensed the shift but didn't yet understand it. She believed Michael was acting out of stress, fear, or misguided protectiveness, not calculating her downfall piece by piece. But the real pressure came later, when Michael began denying Willow access to certain discussions, rearranging financial protections, redirecting family decisions in ways she couldn't predict or influence. She was used to controlling Drew. She was used to manipulating appearances. She was used to guiding sympathy in her direction. But now she felt something unfamiliar: loss of power. And nothing terrified her more. One evening, as she tended to Drew, she looked up to find Michael standing silently in the doorway. There was no accusation in his expression, No anger, no sadness, just awareness. Raw, unfiltered, unshakable awareness. Willow froze. She knew instantly that he knew. There was no other explanation for the way he watched her, the way he examined her movements, the way he seemed to see through her skin and into the guilt underneath. That moment shattered her composure. She turned away too quickly. Her hands trembled too visibly. Her voice cracked even though she didn't speak. Michael didn't confront her there, but the silence between them spoke louder than any scream. Willow realized she had underestimated him. She had believed Michael's softness was weakness. She had believed his loyalty made him blind. She had believed his heart would always choose compassion. But now she was trapped inside his strategy, snared by a quiet mind far more disciplined than she ever expected. And Michael, for the first time in years, felt something he never thought he would feel again: control. Not the pure, familial control he once sought, but something sharper, darker, born from necessity. Drew's life was at stake. The Quartermain legacy was at stake. His children's safety was at stake. And if Willow thought she could poison her way through chaos without consequence, then she was about to learn how dangerous Michael could become. When forced to protect everything he loved, the shift inside him was irreversible. He would not allow Willow to manipulate another narrative. He would not allow her to isolate Drew. He would not allow her darkness to spread unchecked. And as Willow's panic sharpened into paranoia, as she began sensing the walls closing around her, as she realized she had created an enemy far smarter than she anticipated, Michael made one final decision: he would be the one to end this. Whatever it required, whatever he had to sacrifice, whatever truth he had to expose. This time, the Quartermain family would not fall because of secrets. This time, Michael would make sure the one who poisoned their future became the one who lost everything. Michael had reached a point where control was no longer a desire, it was the only strategy he trusted. The chaos surrounding Drew's collapse, the dangerous unpredictability of Willow's spiraling behavior, and the growing instability within the Quartermain family pushed him into a mindset he had never allowed himself to embrace before. He no longer planned his moves out of fear or desperation. Now, every thought he formed, every decision he made, was sharpened by calculation. He saw the weaknesses of the two most volatile people in his life: Willow's unraveling psyche and Drew's physical helplessness, and he understood that if he could control those weaknesses, he could control the future of the entire family. And Michael was ready to do exactly that. Willow's weakness was emotional instability, her frantic attempts to hide guilt, her desperate need to maintain illusions of innocence, her unpredictable responses whenever someone came too close to the truth. Michael watched her carefully, memorizing the moment where she lost composure, where her voice cracked, where fear flickered through her eyes. He understood that Willow was not a strategist. She was reactive, impulsive, ruled by panic more than logic. If he applied pressure in just the right places, she would fold. And once she folded, he could redirect her actions, steer her decisions, and contain the damage she was capable of causing. If controlling Willow protected the family, then he would do it without hesitation. Drew's weakness was tragically simple: he had no agency. Michael did not enjoy exploiting that reality, but he understood its power. Drew could not speak, could not defend himself, could not warn anyone of Willow's escalating danger. This gave Michael an advantage no one else had. He could dictate who saw Drew, who interpreted his condition, and who decided the next step in his care. By controlling access to Drew, Michael controlled the narrative. And if Michael controlled the narrative, he controlled the family's future. His growing influence over the situation was not just personal, it was strategic, precise, and intentional. But Michael wasn't acting alone. Tracy had always thrived on power plays, but now, with the family fracturing and Willow's behavior threatening to expose everyone to public scandal, she found herself aligning perfectly with Michael's intentions. She knew the Quartermain name had survived wars, betrayals, financial disasters, and deaths, but it would not survive internal collapse caused by emotional chaos. And although Michael didn't trust Tracy entirely, he needed her ruthless experience. Tracy, unlike Willow, did not act out of paranoia. She acted out of ambition and legacy. She understood the stakes, she understood the cost, and she understood why Michael was suddenly embracing the darker parts of himself. Together, they began shaping a Plan 1 that would reclaim control of the family from the hands of those two, unstable to manage it. Tracy's methods were blunt, sharp-edged, and unapologetic. Michael's were subtle, psychological, and surgical. Tracy pushed from the outside, applying pressure through influence, money, and reputation. Michael pushed from the inside, manipulating emotions, controlling access, orchestrating conversations that would shift the balance of power in their favor. The combination was devastatingly effective. Willow felt the pressure closing in around her, but she couldn't pinpoint its origin. Every move she made seemed to trigger suspicion. Every attempt to regain control slipped from her grasp. Michael monitored her behavior with quiet intensity, adjusting his approach whenever she grew dangerously unpredictable. He used her secrets against her, never explicitly, never openly, but through glances, controlled silence, and reminders that he saw more than she believed. Willow began to feel watched, cornered, outmaneuvered, and that fear weakened her further. Drew, locked in a silent fight for survival, sensed the shift as well. Michael's presence grew heavier, more purposeful. Drew understood far too late that Michael was no longer simply a grieving relative. He was a man driven by strategy, a man capable of shaping destinies when pushed into a corner. Drew didn't know whether Michael intended to save him or to use him, but he could feel the shift in power even through paralysis. The Quartermain household changed quietly at first. Papers moved, decisions rerouted, authority redistributed, but soon the shift became unmistakable. Tracy began reasserting her influence publicly, and Michael's calm, unwavering expression told everyone who paid attention that he was no longer the peace-loving son. Desperate to avoid family conflict, he was becoming something else, something calculated, something dangerous. The most shocking part was not that Michael was capable of this transformation. It was how seamless the transformation became once he allowed himself to embrace the truth. If he didn't take control, the family would fall apart. If he didn't contain Willow, she would destroy them all. If he didn't manage Drew's situation, someone else would twist it for their own benefit. Michael and Tracy, for the first time, stood aligned not by blood but by necessity. They were reclaiming the Quartermain legacy not with warmth or forgiveness, but with strategy, precision, and cold resolve. Because Port Charles would soon learn that the most dangerous battles weren't fought with guns or threats. They were fought in silence, in shadows, in carefully controlled moves made by people no one expected to become threats. And Michael had just stepped onto that battlefield with full intention of winning.